Okay, so today, let's dive into a career that sounds pretty cool. Clothing Cad Technician. It does have a kind of futuristic ring to it, right? Like, are we talking robots on the runway? With like sewing needles instead of laser beams?
Not quite robots on the runway just yet, but you're right. It definitely eyes about tech and how it's changing the fashion world. So imagine you have this amazing idea for, I don't know, maybe the coolest pair of sneakers anyone's ever seen. Well, a clothing CAD technician takes that idea, that initial spark, and builds it out digitally, kind of like a blueprint, but like way cooler.
So less sketching on paper, more like, I don't know, pixels and software.
Exactly. And it gets even cooler. So the sources mention this thing called surface modeling. Think of it like making those flat patterns you'd use to actually cut the fabric, but you're doing it digitally. Then there's solid modeling. That's where things get really interesting. You actually build a virtual version of the garment in 3D. You can see how it drapes, how it moves, even how the fabric catches the light.
Wow. That's got to be so helpful for seeing any problems early on, right? Like
Yeah.
maybe a sleeve looks great as a sketch, but then you make the 3D model and you're like, whoa, that's going to bunch up if someone moves their arm.
Precisely. Being able to perfect the fit and the function before any fabric is even cut is a huge advantage. But this brings up something you might be wondering, and I know I did too. Fashion, at its heart, it's about creative freedom, right? Those happy accidents you can only get with real-world materials.
Right, that's exactly what I was thinking. Doesn't working on a computer, like, I don't know, stifle some of that creative spark?
What's so interesting here is that it can actually do the opposite. It can amplify your creativity. Imagine being able to experiment with like tons of different fabrics, textures, even adding details to your 3D model instantly with just a few clicks. You can try anything without wasting materials or time. It's like having an infinite digital sketchbook.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this tech could be a game changer for designers. But the sources also mentioned that you need a solid understanding of how clothing is actually made. So it's not enough to just be good with tech. You need to understand the art of sewing and tailoring too.
You've hit the nail on the head. That's where the real magic happens. Bringing together those tech skills with a deep understanding of how garments are actually constructed. Knowing things like how different fabrics behave, different stitching techniques, even just understanding how patterns work together, that's how you take those digital designs and bring them into the real world.
Wow, this is way more complex than I thought at first. You're not just clicking buttons, you're like a digital tailor. You're the one who brings these creative visions to life. And it seems like there are a lot of different paths you could take to get into this field. The sources mention everything from fashion design to even like textile science and engineering.
It's true. The background of a clothing CAD technician can be so diverse, which really just highlights how multifaceted the role is. You need that creative spark, that attention to detail, but also that practical know-how of how garments are constructed, that blend of art and technology. That's what makes it so interesting, you know?
It really is. So let's say you've got the skills, you've landed a job. What's next? Is this like a dead-end career, or are there opportunities to like, climb that digital fashion ladder?
Oh, now that's where things get really exciting. Think of it like leveling up in a video game, but for your career.
Okay, I like the sound of that.
Right. So you might start out as like a junior clothing CAD technician working under some real pros. And this stage, it's all about soaking everything up. Mastering the software, learning all the lingo, really just building up your digital design toolkit.
So it's like a digital apprenticeship. You're getting mentored by the masters.
Exactly. And as you get more experience under your belt, you could move up to like an intermediate role. This is where you really get to flex those creative muscles. You're taking those initial design ideas and like translating them into these digital realities, working more directly with designers, brainstorming ideas, really bringing their vision to life on the screen.
Okay, yeah, I can see how that would be a challenging but really rewarding jump.
Uh-huh.
More responsibility, really owning that technical side of design. So where do you go from there? What's the next level?
Well, keep honing those skills, keep building your expertise, and you could become a senior clothing CAD technician.
Ooh, senior level.
Yeah. And at that level, you're not just creating designs, you're leading whole projects, you're mentoring those junior technicians, maybe even specializing in a specific area. Like maybe you become the footwear guru, or you're all about that high-tech performance wear.
So you can really find your niche, become like the go-to person for a certain kind of clothing CAD. That's really cool. But this isn't like a set it and forget it career path, right? The fashion world changes so fast.
You are absolutely right, and that's part of what keeps things interesting. The sources emphasize that continuous learning, it's essential. You have to stay on top of trends, new software, even emerging tech like 3D printing. I mean, think of the possibilities.
Yeah, that makes sense. Fashion waits for no one. You got to keep those skills sharp. So let's say, just for a second, that you're just starting out, super eager to break into this field. What would you say to someone, some aspiring clothing CAD technician out there? What advice do you have?
Well, the sources had some good tips for anyone who wants to be a digital fashionista. First and foremost, get your hands dirty, like literally. Internships, apprenticeships, those are super valuable, whether it's with a big brand or a smaller design studio. Even freelance projects, fashion shows, competitions, anything that helps you build a really strong portfolio.
Right, because your portfolio, that's like your golden ticket in any creative field, right? Showing, not just telling, what you can do.
100%. And don't be afraid to think outside the box with that portfolio. The sources mentioned creating a website or even a blog to really show off your work, using social media to connect with people in the industry. It's all about building your online presence, having a voice and a style that's all your own.
Right, because especially in the fashion world, it's not just what you know, but who you know too, right? Networking must be huge.
Absolutely. Going to industry events, joining professional groups, even just connecting with other designers online, those relationships can open so many doors. And, don't be afraid to reach out to people you admire. Find a mentor. Having someone who can guide you, especially when you're just starting out, can make a huge difference.
Yeah, a mentor can be a game changer. So we've talked about the skills you need, the software, the networking aspect, but let's pull back for a second and look at the bigger picture. What are the broader implications of this career, like beyond just the clothes themselves?
That's a really interesting question. I think what's so cool about this field is that it really sits at this intersection of creativity, technology, and something we hear a lot about these days, sustainability.
Oh, that's a great point. Because honestly, fashion isn't exactly known for being the most eco-friendly industry.
Exactly. But with technology, we can design and produce clothing in ways that are much more sustainable. Digital tools can help us reduce waste, use materials more efficiently, even experiment with new eco-friendly fabrics and production methods. It's about making fashion that's both stylish and sustainable.
It's like they say, reduce, reuse, recycle, and redesign. So it's not just about making clothes, it's about like shaping the future of fashion itself. Okay, but let's get back to some of the practical stuff for a minute. The sources mentioned a few specific software programs that anyone who's serious about becoming a clothing CAD technician should really have on their radar.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were a few big names that kept popping up. Anything you're familiar with?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. 3 in particular are considered industry standards. You've got Adobe Illustrator, CorelDRAW, and then one that's a little more specialized, Gerber Technologies AccuMark.
Okay, yeah, Illustrator and CorelDRAW, I've definitely heard of those. Aren't those used for like all kinds of graphic design stuff? So it makes sense that they'd have a place in the fashion world too.
Exactly. They're like the Swiss Army knives of the design world, You
Yeah.
can do so much with them. Then you've got AccuMark, which is like laser focused on apparel, creating patterns, grading those patterns for different sizes, even planning out the whole production process.
So yeah, having those tools under your belt would definitely give someone a head start in the job market, right?
Oh, 100%. Those technical skills plus a killer portfolio, and of course, that understanding of how clothes actually get made, that's the magic formula right there.
Got it. So I'm just picturing someone in this role, like what's their actual workday like? Are they glued to a computer screen all day, or is there, I don't know, more variety than that?
Well, the sources didn't exactly give us a minute-by-minute breakdown, but we can kind of piece it together from what we know. It's probably a mix, right? Some days you might be deep in the design zone, really focused on the details. Other days it might be more collaborative brainstorming with designers, maybe even presenting your work to clients. You're kind of like that bridge between the idea and the actual garment, so communication is key.
Yeah, that makes sense. It sounds like you could get pretty fast-paced too, especially when you're like up against a deadline.
Hmm.
Are there any downsides to this career path that, we haven't really touched on yet? I mean, no job is perfect, right?
You're right, there are always challenges, and the sources did mention that this job can be pretty demanding. Those deadlines, the attention to detail, I mean, even a tiny error in a digital blueprint can really mess things up down the line.
Oh yeah, for sure. You're basically creating the digital roadmap for something that has to like fit and move on an actual human body.
So no pressure, right?
Right.
Right. And like a lot of creative fields, you got to be prepared for those late nights, especially when you're gearing up for a new season or a big launch.
So maybe not quite as glamorous as those fashion shows make it seem.
Well, you're definitely working behind the scenes, but for the right person, someone with that passion for fashion and that knack for technology, it can be incredibly rewarding. You get to be a part of this world that's constantly evolving, constantly pushing boundaries.
Right. It's like the perfect blend of like art and technology, which is really cool.
Right.
So we've covered a lot of ground today, from what a clothing CAD technician actually does to the software they use, the importance of networking, even how this career is impacting the future of fashion. Anything we missed?
I think we've given our listeners a pretty good deep dive, but there was one more little nugget of wisdom in the sources that I wanted to mention, and it's the idea of transferable skills.
Oh yeah, that's huge.
Yeah.
Because this might seem like a super specialized field, but I'm betting there are tons of skills that you could use in other industries too.
Exactly. Think about it. You're developing all these amazing skills, problem solving, attention to detail, mastering complex software, communicating effectively. I mean, those are valuable in so many fields, not just fashion, graphic design, animation, product development, you name it.
So even if someone decides that, clothing CAD technician isn't the perfect fit for them, this whole career path basically equips you with all these skills that can open doors to a whole world of other opportunities.
Precisely. And that's something I always try to emphasize. The skills you gain, they never go to waste. They become stepping stones on your own unique career journey.
I love that. It's not just about the one job, it's about the journey and how those skills can take you in all sorts of exciting directions. Well, this has been a really awesome deep dive into the world of clothing CAD technicians. For anyone listening who's feeling that little spark of curiosity, that itch to blend creativity and technology, maybe this is your sign to go for it. Who knows? You could be designing the virtual fashion trends of the future. That's all we have for today's deep dive. Thanks for listening.